What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? In today's video, we are going to be learning how to create shop GUIs in Roblox. Before we get too deep into the video, I want to give a shout out to Polaris. I actually learned from them how to make my first shop GUIs when learning how to script in Roblox. I'll leave a link down below to their channel in the description. You guys can go ahead and check them out. I feel like after learning a lot more about scripting in Roblox, I actually used their shop model and improved it a lot, so I wanted to share how I'm now creating my own shops. Additionally, if this video does help you guys out, make sure you hit that like button and also hit the subscribe button and turn this post notifications on if you'd like to get notified with more Roblox development videos. We also have a Discord if you guys would like to ask questions or help other people. Link down below in the description to that as well. And finally, we have a Patreon. If you guys would like to support me or get instant access to all the scripts that I make in this video, link down below to the Patreon in the description. Go check it out. One last thing before we get into it. A lot of this involves object-oriented programming, so if you guys are completely unfamiliar with what OOP is in Roblox or Lua, there's going to be a card at the top right-hand corner of the screen where I actually make a video explaining object-oriented programming in Roblox. I highly recommend that you guys do watch it so you can further understand what we actually do in this video. Either way, I'll be trying to explain everything as much as possible as we go through this video, so you shouldn't be struggling too much, but I would definitely recommend that you guys at least sort of start to understand OOP before getting into this. Anyway, let's get into it. Real quick, I want to show you guys a demonstration of what the shop will actually look like when we're done with it. So as we can see, we opened up the shop and we have 3 different net. Now what you see, when we click on an item, we have this little box pop up right here. It has the name of the item, so basic net. It has a picture of the item. This is actually a viewport frame. It has 1 stat, 2 stats, 3 stats, and then actually how much it costs. Now the GUI isn't all perfectly set up. I actually do plan to have images right here for each of the stats to represent that. For right now, they've just kind of been blank because they're sort of placeholders. And then we can click on buy and we can see purchase. We also hear a noise, and then we also have the new net in our hand. So that's exactly how it works. And then we can also go back to previous ones which we own, and we can click equip, and there we go. All right, so I just created a brand new base plate game. The first thing that we're going to want to do is go to server script service, create a script, and we're going to want to name this player data. Once we have the script created, we're going to want to clear it out, and then we are going to want to get the player's service. So local players equals game dot get service players. And then what we're going to want to do is players dot player added. So we're going to want to listen for the player added event, and then we're going to want to connect that to a new function. And the function will take a player as the parameter. So once a player is added to the game, once the player joins the game, this function will be called and it will pass through what player has joined the game. So now we're going to say local leader stats equals instance dot new folder, and then we're going to want to parent that to the player which has just joined. We're going to say leaderstats.name equals leader stats. And then we are going to create one of our currencies. So local coins equals instance.new int value. We're going to want to parent that to Leaderstats this time. We're going to say coins.name equals coins, and coins.value equals, we're just going to say 100. Usually you would say 0, and then we would actually implement a way of getting more coins. But since literally all I want to do in this tutorial is show you how to make a usable GUI shop, I'm going to give myself 100 coins on join. We're also not going to go any deeper into player stats. We're not going to even talk about saving or anything like that, because the focus of this video is meant to be only on the GUI shop. But we are going to need some form of currency, and a lot of people use leaderboard stats, so that's why I'm creating this. If you guys want to learn more just about individual leader stats, how to save it, and everything else like that, I'll make another tutorial on that, but that's for a different video. Anyways, let's go ahead and start the game, and as soon as we start the game, we should see we now have 100 coins on our leader stat. All right, so now that we have our currency set up, let's go ahead and go to Starter GUI and add a brand new screen GUI. Let's rename this to Shop GUI. Then let's go ahead and add a frame to this. One thing that I definitely recommend, that I think everybody always recommends anytime I see a GUI video, is you want to get this auto scale plugin. Then you want to click unit conversion, and this will pop up, and you just click on size, click scale, and it'll make it scale for every single device. It's really nice. I'll leave a link down below in the description to it. It is super convenient, and this means that your GUI will scale from a humongous screen down to a tiny little phone screen. We can actually test that by going right here and putting this to an iPhone 4, and then we can untoggle it, and we can see it is scaled for every single screen size. It's super convenient and nice. All right, now let's go ahead and size this up a decent amount depending on how large you want the shop. I think that's good enough. We also centered it a little bit, just trying to move it to the center if that's where you want it, or you can move it over to the left, to the right, however you really want to position it. Then we're going to go ahead and add a UI corner, and what this is going to do is, as you can see, instead of it being like very rectangular, we can make it a little bit more round. Always when you're using UIs, you're always going to want to really be using scale for the most part. So if we put it to 1, we can see that makes it a circle. If you put it to like 25, it makes it pretty round. Let's say 0.1. Definitely rounded those corners a little bit. Let's say 0.05. And I think that's pretty good right there. I'm liking that. Now we can also add a gradient to this if we want it to kind of look a little bit nicer, like the background color of it. So let's go ahead and open up this gradient, and let's just say that we want it to be sort of a bluish. So we will do that, and then let's go ahead and do something like that. It's a little bit nicer than the basic one color background of blue. So this is fine for the background. Now inside of the frame, let's go ahead and insert another frame, and let's rename this to title. And then once again, make sure you scale that, and then inside of here, we will add a text label. Now I'm going to put my title up here so that it sort of overlaps the shop slightly, and then we are going to put the text label in here, and I just like to make my text label the exact same size as that, so that's good for us. Make sure you scale the text label as well. Now for the text label background, we are going to set the transparency to 1 so we cannot see the background at all. The UI gradient, we are actually going to copy it from the frame and put that into the title frame, so the title frame has the same gradient as the background. The text label, we are going to scale the text. We are going to set the text color to, let's go ahead and set the text color to white, and then let's add a stroke to it. Let's make the stroke transparency 0 so that we can see the stroke, and then let's change the text of the text label to shop in all caps, and then we can change it to whatever font we actually want to. I don't really care. I guess we'll just use this font right here. It's good enough. And then we can also copy the UI corner and throw that in here as well. It seems like we should actually make this a little bit more rounded, so let's say 0.1. Let's try 0.2. I'll do 0.25, and I think that looks nice. So that's all good to go. Let's go ahead and make sure that this is actually centered. Okay, just like that. That looks centered, and I like it. Actually, honestly, I kind of want to make it a little bit smaller, so we'll go ahead and do that. Now let's go ahead and drag the text right on top of it, and I like to make the text slightly smaller than the actual size of the frame, so I think that's perfect like that. By the way, I am no UI professional. This is sort of just a placeholder. I would recommend if you guys want your shop to look beautiful and actually super nice, I'd recommend you guys either pay somebody to make sort of certain UI elements for you, or you learn more about UI and making cool things like that yourself. Personally, there's a lot of things that I would do to improve this, like add sort of a drop shadow down below underneath of this so it looks cooler. I would also do probably different color schemes, but like I said, this isn't about the whole UI looking super nice and beautiful. It's more about making a standard GUI shop and also a lot of the functionality behind it. Now, let's rename our text label to title text label, or you could just do title or just title text, whatever you want to do. Then we're done with the title frame. Now we are going to add in another frame, but this time it is going to be a scrolling frame. Very important. And this one we're going to rename to container, because this is going to hold all of our items within the shop. So once we got that, we are going to go ahead and expand this a little bit. I like to leave a little bit of room on all of the edges. Let's go ahead and make sure this is sort of centered. There we go. That looks very nice. Now inside of here, we are going to want to add a UI grid layout. Also, make sure you hit that container with a scale if we didn't already. Now, what I like to do is we're going to make the background transparency 0 so we don't even see the background of it at all. If you go down to the properties and you go down to the scrolling section, we can make some modification to the actual scroll bar right here. So if we want to, we can actually change the scroll bar color. If we want to make it like green or something, I don't know. You can make this literally any color that you wanted to. You can even make it like white. So I guess we'll go ahead and make it white. You can also make it invisible if you just set the transparency to 1, but most people probably don't want to do that. We can also increase the thickness of it to make it a little bit larger, or we can make it a little bit smaller. And that's usually all I ever do for the scroll bar. I would also recommend that you set the border size pixel to 0, because as you can see, it actually took that little black line that was away right there, and that's really sort of unappealing in my opinion, so that's why I set that to 0. Once you got this whole thing set up, we can go back inside of the container, and this time we are going to add a text button. Now, of course, hit that with a scale, and then we are going to rename this text button to item template. And what this is going to be is this is going to be the actual item which you click on, which is in your shop. So remember how when I showed you the shop that I made, that was actually the net which preview inside of here. Now, when it comes down to how you're actually going to display items within your shop, you actually have a couple of options. You have a viewport frame, which is sort of a physical view of the actual model in the game. You have an image, which you literally need to take a screenshot and upload the picture of the item. And then you also have like text. If you don't want to use an image, or you don't want to visibly display the item at all using an actual image file or using an actual viewport frame, you could literally just do text. So I'm going to be showcasing mostly how to do this with images and viewport frames. So I am just going to go ahead and clear out the text. Now we can also add a UI corner to this if we did want to. That will make it look a little bit more rounded around the corners. So I'll go ahead and just leave it as it is. I sort of like the slight rounding. We don't need it to be too much. We can also add an image label right here, and then we can rename this to image. Now, this is what it'll look like if we're actually using an image. Let's actually find an image which we could use right here. Okay, so I have a sword image just as a little template, little demonstration. Let's go ahead and set the actual image ID of this to that right there. And there we go. This is how it would sort of look like if you're using an image within your shop. Now, let's also go ahead and add a viewport frame to this too. Now, we're not going to do anything with the viewport frame, but let's go ahead and click back on the image and this time search up image again. And I'm actually going to clear that out so it's just the default image. This way we can sort of tell if the image has been loaded correctly. Now, on both these, I'm actually going to turn their visibility off. And the reason for that is because when we construct these buttons, we're going to actually set the specific one which we're using to visible. For some items, we're going to be using the viewport frame, and for other items, we will use an image instead so we can see how we can do both of them. Now, we can go ahead and duplicate this, and we can see how they will actually be laid out in our shop. Now, the way that we actually change this a little bit is by using the UI grid layout. So we can go to cell padding, cell size, and we can expand both of these. So once again, I would definitely recommend that you use scale. So the padding is actually the distance between the two items. So if we set this to like 0.5, we can see they are very spread apart. If we set this to 0.1, they are much closer. So I'm going to go ahead and say 0.05 and see how close that is. Okay, that's not too bad. And I just set the Y to 0.1 for right now. Let's actually duplicate a few more so we can see them. Okay, maybe we want them to be a little bit closer, so we'll do 0.05. Yeah, we'll want them a little bit more close. So 0.2. Okay, I think that's actually pretty good right there. So we've got 0.05 and 0.02 for the X and the Y. Now the cell size is actually how large the items will be on their own. So remember, always use scale. Let's set the offset to 0, set the scale to 1. That is gigantic. Set it to 0.1. That's very small. Set it to 0.25. That's decent size, but maybe 0.20 would be better instead. I like 0.20 a lot, so we're going to go ahead and leave it as that. And then for the Y, I think we'll also set it to 0.2 as well. No, 0.2 is a little bit too large. How about 0.02? Way too small. How about 0.1? 0.1 is actually pretty decent, although I think it might be a little bit larger than I want, so maybe 0.07. Okay, I think I'm going to go with 0.085. So for the X, I think I'm going to go with 0.2, and for the Y, I'm going to go with 0.085, and this looks pretty nice to me. I might be a little bit too spread out, and you guys can definitely adjust it to your liking. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete all of those templates, and now we can see we are back down the 1. Now we're pretty much done with this frame. We got to create a brand new frame, and this time make sure you name this frame info. So this is actually going to hold all of the information about the specific item when you click on it. So let's say, for instance, we clicked on this item right here, then this little menu will pop up towards the right here, and it will display all of the stats and information about this specific item. So what I like to do with this is I like to make it a little bit smaller than the actual frame itself, and I think that's not too bad. We might want to make it a little bit smaller as well, and then we also make sure we want to hit it with a scale. All right, so now we got that made, let's go ahead and actually copy some properties from the original frame right here. So we are going to go ahead and copy the gradient. We will also copy the UI corner. We're also going to copy the title, and we're going to make a little bit of changes to this. Oh, that's actually perfect. So this is where the item name is going to go when we actually click it. We're going to rename this to item name instead of title. And then inside of here, we are going to rename the text label to item name text label, and then we can also fill in the text as sort of a placeholder, so we can say net. And if you think that looks good, then that looks good. If not, you can make your adjustments to it, but I think this frame's pretty good. Now I'm going to duplicate this once again, and I'm going to name this item price, and then we're going to open it up, and we will rename this item price text label, and let's actually change the text of this to like 5 or something like that. And then let's go ahead and move this, and I like to have the price like right here. I would say, I don't know, wherever you want to have the price, just go ahead and drag and drop that. So we'll put that right there, and we could change the background color of this if we wanted to. We could also delete the gradient and like leave it like this. I think just to make it easy to see, maybe we will actually do this. We'll just make it like yellow or something, because why not? Okay, so now we've got that. Now let's go ahead and add another text button right here, and this will be the buy button. So when somebody clicks this, this will sort of purchase the item, so we can throw it like that. I think that's nice enough. Let's rename this to buy button. Let's set the background color of it to green for right now, just to see what it looks like. We'll say text. Make sure we set the text to scaled. I like the color to be white. The stroke transparency to 0. And then we will set the text to buy in all caps. And then of course we could adjust the font if you wanted to. We'll just put it as Oswald because why not? And then let's also get a UI corner in here, duplicate that from our info frame, and let's make the UI corner a little bit larger. So 0.1. Let's try 0.2. Okay, I like 0.2 and that looks pretty good to me. Also make sure that you hit the buy button with a scale as well. If you ever are unsure if you've scaled everything properly, you can click right here where it sort of shows the multiple devices, and then make sure you set your device to like something different. I just chose the iPhone 4S because it's extremely small and it'll give you a really nice sort of look at what it looks like on a very small device. And as we can see, everything is scaled properly. Although it might look a little bit ugly, it is definitely scaled properly. The next thing we need to do is add an image label to this. Now this is going to be the display image of the item. So let's also hit this with a scale real quick, and then we can make this a little bit bigger if we wanted to, just so we can kind of have an easier time centering this. Although I am definitely having a little rough time centering it. Okay, there we go. That looks centered to me, so I think we'll just put it right like that. And we're going to rename this item image. And then let's also add a viewport frame as well and put it in the exact same spot as the item image, in the exact same size and everything. So stretch it out a little bit, and okay, that looks good to me. Let's also set the visibility of both the item image and the viewport frame to not visible as well. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is I would like to copy this frame right here. And we're actually going to call this is stats. Now this is going to be where the stats are actually displayed at. So if we have like a tool that we're selling in the shop and that gives 10 times coin multiplier and gift multiplier, we're going to display all of that information right here. So I like to make that a little bit larger because that is a good amount of information that can be holding inside of here. All right, that's pretty ugly, I'm not going to lie, but it'll do for right now. I definitely want to make the UI corner a little bit smaller though, because I'm not a big fan of that. Okay, that looks definitely a little bit nicer. Now with this text label, rather than it being the item name text label, it's going to be each stat text label. So we're going to say coin stat text label, and then what we're going to do is sort of stretch it to a point where we can have multiple stats. So let's set the text to say 100 or whatever the stat could possibly be to get a nice little placeholder of it. And then we can also duplicate this, and we could say gift stat text label, and then let's drag this down a little bit, and there we go. So now we see we have multiple stats displayed right here. Now what I've seen people do to display the individual stat types is we can do coin stat display, and then we can kind of just we can make this a lot smaller, and we can say like $, and then basically this is how people will know what stat it is. I don't like this way, but I haven't found a particularly better way, so I'm just sort of showing you the average way that people do. And then you'll basically just make sure that this label right here is always smaller than that. So let's go ahead and like add a very big number so we can see how far it stretches. So we can see that that's actually overlapping. We're not going to want that. We want to make that a little bit smaller. So that looks pretty good to me. And then we could we could actually delete the gift stat, and we could just duplicate this real quick and rename it to gift stat display and gift stat text label. Grab both of those, move them down a little bit, and there we go. We've got, move it down a little bit further, say, like right there. Okay, change up the gift stat display a little bit to, we can change this up to, I don't know, gift emoji or something like that. So yeah, we can do that. So we can do that, and then as we can see, it still is overlapping a little bit, so let's go ahead and make that a little bit smaller, and there we go. That looks like it's perfectly fine. All right, so we're mostly done for designing the entire UI. The only other thing that we need to do, or that I would like to do, is actually add a close button. So inside of the Shop UI, what we're going to do is we're going to add another text button. Make sure we hit that with a scale. Let's move that over to where we would want the close button to be at. I think I'll actually put it over here this time, because why not? Now the way that I'll make my text buttons is, one, we always make sure that we scale the text. I will just literally put an emoji of an X right like that. I like that. Actually, no. Okay, we're going to put an X as the text. We're going to set the color to white. We are going to set the stroke transparency to 0, and we're going going to make the background color of this to red. So I feel like it's sort of like a browser window a little bit, like kind of how that X button is set up. Not too bad, and it looks good enough. It could look better. You can also design it however you really want to, but we're just going to leave it like that. Let's rename this text button to close button. And now we're pretty much finished with creating the entire GUI component. We'll make a few changes later on when we actually get deeper into scripting, but that's actually what we're going to be doing on the next episode. So yeah, we're going to be ending it here. If this video did help you guys out or you guys did enjoy it, make sure you smash the like button. If you want to see more Roblox development videos, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and turn those post notifications on. If you guys have any questions, leave in the comments section down below. Also, you can join the Discord, link down below in the description. You can ask your questions in there for faster responses by the community, or you can help other people if you want to as well. And the last thing is, as always, I do have a Patreon. If you would like to get all the scripts or place file from what we've done so far, there's a link down below in the description of my Patreon. You guys can support me and gain access to all the scripts and the game file from this video as well. Anyway, I hope that you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.